give a big welcome to the CEO of Sports Singapore, Mr. Lim Teck Yin.
Well, thank you very much, Jasper, for making me wear a tie while you get to open your shirt and show the hair on your chest. And I propose that next year we show up in our compression gear, maybe throw in a jacket for good measure. But very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sports Matters, the second edition for what I think promises to be one of the most inspiring and quality sport conferences that we'll see here in Asia. I'm the government guy, and I'm actually delighted to be able to speak first, so that whatever I have to say that sounds rather bureaucratic and boring will not put a dampener on the rest of the conference's proceedings. To our overseas guests, I welcome you to Singapore, and I'm glad that you've made it here. I was told that although this conference coincides with the F1 week, last year nobody attended F1 after that. And so it's something for you to think about, I think, in future editions. If you're not here for the F1, if we do it this week, and if we do it next year around the WTA week, I hope you will stay for a bit of tennis. Very clearly, from Sports Singapore's perspective, Asia holds tremendous potential for sports business and industry, and in this decade and beyond. Singapore certainly aims to be a hub for thought leadership and business expansion in this region. It has been very apparent that sport has been riding on the back of extraordinary and resilient economic growth and the developments of the digital age. In recent years, we've seen sports businesses cross the different dimensions of live events, broadcast and media, consumer products and services across the entire ecosystem's value chains to set up offices in Asia. Notably in Singapore, our educational institutions are offering more and more programs in sports disciplines. And the undergraduate program, as an example, has been oversubscribed many times over. Through this growth, we as Singaporeans and as Asians have raised our expectations of sport in our communities. More than ever before, we have spectators. More than ever before, we have aspirations to watch world-class sporting action. And we got that last weekend in the glossy staging of the Asian Netball Championships. The fact that our national netball team regained the title made front-page news among the tributes to the spectacular entertainment value of the championships this year. And this was something of a topic last year when Sport Matters discussed how sports needs to catch up in the entertainment industry. Consumers increasingly want superior production values with their sport. And yes, they do want to feel that surge of national pride when our athletes do well at international competitions. All of this means a continuing call to action by government to invest in sport through infrastructure and direct funding. And the new Singapore Sports Hub is evidence of that. The growing prominence of sport in national culture and economy should cause us to think more deeply about the way we collaborate. Here I'm talking about the nexus between private business and governments, and also with sports federations in a tripartite strategic partnership. Strong partnerships in this context should go beyond each looking at one's own investment or expense on direct interests, but in cross-cutting shared outcomes. I'm describing a form of impact investing, akin to sponsorship and more than CSR dollars at work. Impact investing has served to combine the best of both worlds in many sectors. Private equity firms make direct investments in enterprises or agencies engaged in to produce both a social and commercial benefit. Great strategic partnerships are based on shared long-term goals and not merely on the short-term returns of a sporting event or a media production. Thus, Sport Matters is a compelling platform, as you saw in the mission statement that Jasper read out earlier on, to facilitate opportunities for us to network and to discuss substantive future collaboration. In my capacity as CEO of Sports Singapore, I'm guided by our strategy and plans under Vision 2030. This plan was released in 2012 after a broad stakeholder consultation, and Vision 2030 issued a clarion call for people in Singapore to live better through sport. For us in Singapore, sport is a strategy in itself. Through the partnerships that we forge in and around sport, we are able to achieve the desired sporting, social, and economic outcomes for our country. This is our impact investing. Thus, I'd like to touch on two key issues that have relevance for both of us, for you as you pursue your business opportunities in Asia, and for us in Sports Singapore, as we strive to activate Vision 2030. First, the Asian sports market is relatively immature. Some of you may disagree with me, but for me, this market appears to be at a relatively early stage of its growth. The value of total sponsorship deals in Asia has grown by about 14% to $3.28 billion in 2013 from the $2.89 billion in 2011. However, it would appear that this growth is less a function of increasing deal values, but rather by the volume of deals. Volume rose by some 18.7%. Notwithstanding this volume growth, the total value is still barely only about 5% of the total sports sponsorship spend globally. On the consumption side, there are a few who are willing to spend on a good sum of money for equipment and events, but the general mass market response to premium sports events, goods and services is not as strong as what one would expect in Europe or America. And I think you will recognize in the news the billion-dollar Asian Games that's now taking place in Incheon is certainly suffering from this effect. So government intervention is very apparent as we naturally recognize market potential and the aspirations of the people. Sports businesses, I think, love intervention when it results in subsidies and direct investment. However, I think there's also a need for sports businesses to apply their expertise to think about how to partner government to develop a sustainable growth model for its offerings. My second point is that the expansion of choice in the marketplace has far exceeded consumer demand, resulting in a very apparent dilution of market share for each player. This is to be expected in a market with much more potential to be optimized. Everyone will want to come to the party earlier rather than later. In the uncoordinated free market, we should expect peaks and troughs of business interests. And I think that all of us in Singapore will soon experience a peak in the next few years with the slew of high-profile developments over the last few years. While this is good for the consumer, it will quickly dilute any potential for a single element to develop in this market. The challenge for governments is to have to decide who to encourage, who to partner, and who to, in some cases, provide a significant leg up. There would be a gradation of support for different parties, depending on the perceived value proposition that one brings to the table. Discerning what strategic choices to make in this regard is particularly challenging when there are many small segments and choices to make. To illustrate my point for Singapore, there are about 65 national sports federations. That number puts a challenging spin when you think about facility master planning, when we try to meet the aspirations of different segments. How popular should a sport be before we work towards creating a facility for interest groups, say an Olympic ice skating rink, more cricket fields or equestrian parks, or even a velodrome? How many football leagues, domestic and regional, can there be before the football fans' attention is fully stretched, especially when there are ample offerings on television, on YouTube, to satisfy the most ardent supporter? My anecdotes may sound like a very uniquely Singaporean problem because of our small population and landmass, but I think the challenge of dilution and cannibalization is evident in other countries in Asia, albeit in different forms and scale. Anecdotally, in one of the F1 venues in Asia, spectatorship declined by about 34% in 2012, largely due to clashes with other sporting offerings fighting for the same primetime space. The fact that we've only seen 2% growth in the value of sponsorship for sports in Asia versus 61% growth in the value of non-sport sponsorship should give us pause. We must remember that sport does not just compete with itself for interest and attention, but also against all other lifestyle offerings. And in Singapore, the growth in sports sponsorship has been about only 3% compared to about 11% for non-sport sponsorship. What should be our collective response to what I have outlined till now? I reiterate that governments need business partners who take the long-term view and who are willing to jointly invest in developing the market for sport and achieve lasting impact. To do this well, we need to work horizontally across the system, share ideas and perspective on trends, and look at how we can complement and not derail each other's efforts. This is really the nexus between professional sport and sport for development, and we can work together on two fronts. First, let's jointly identify critical capability gaps and invest in capability and workforce development efforts. I think the idea that Jasper has had to start the academy running parallel to this program is what I'm speaking about. The challenge for all of us will be in building our capabilities in people, programming, and infrastructure, as these are the catalysts for market growth. International sports businesses bring expertise to bear from around the world to host countries and should work with local government to anchor institutional expertise in preparation for demand growth. In Singapore, there are literally hundreds of people graduating every year from sports-related courses looking to start careers. They need expert mentors who believe that the long-term commitment to the workforce will bring significant future gains to their business interests. Second, let's think about cross-investing in non-direct interests that would seem to have longer-term impact on your company and brand value. And again, I'm not talking about pure CSR, but impact investing. For example, sponsor local national athletes and teams, even if you are not the typical high-performance apparel or equipment maker. It would raise overall standards and inspire longer-term value for the sports market by igniting interest, engagement, and consumption. The longer-term impact investing for positive benefit and social outcomes through intentional design is emerging globally and already proving to be a powerful tool in diverse areas such as agriculture, community regeneration, and affordable housing. We can draw the best practices from these sectors in forging partnerships between government and the private sector. Let me close by discussing the public-private partnership arrangement for the Singapore Sports Hub to illustrate what we are hoping to achieve in Singapore. The PPP seeks to bring together the expertise and resources of the private and public sectors to collaborate and catalyze the market and interest for sport and a healthy lifestyle for Singaporeans of all ages. As part of the PPP, a Premier Park Foundation was set up to reinvest a significant portion of Sports Hub's commercial revenues to develop and enhance events, activities, capabilities, and facilities. In many ways, the PPF is a fine example of impact investing, where business returns are achieved and measured alongside positive and longer-term social outcomes. What have I learned from the PPP arrangement so far? As partners, we are choreographing a brand new dance. We come together from different starting points, so that isn't always easy. When we are clumsy or unable to sync with our partners' moves, we step on each other's toes. One partner or the other may get a little bit riled. But those occasions actually present opportunities to clarify and better appreciate each other's intentions. Then we learn, we adapt, and we make adjustment to our postures so that we can flow as a single cohesive team. The big idea is that once that is achieved, we would be able to invite more partners to the dance floor. From Singapore to Nanjing to Incheon, Asia continues to make history in the sporting arena. And over the past few years, we have observed and contributed to the evolution in the patterns for the Asian consumer. Looking ahead, much of our success will be predicated on our ability to partner and collaborate as we strive to meet the demands of a more discerning consumer against the backdrop of more diverse lifestyle opportunities. We don't speak for all governments, but certainly for Sports Singapore, we strive to be a smart investor and a value-added partner. And we want an astute partner in sport business with a longer-term view and a deep appreciation to drive integrated strategies for meaningful and aspirational national outcomes. So as you network and exchange ideas over these 2 days, I hope to be able to learn from you and for us to establish a new foundation for our partnership going forward. And I wish you a successful and impactful conference. Thank you very much.